Is anyone else really loving being in isolation right now? Because I am starting to struggle and I'm feeling a bit crazy. So if this video comes out with any sort of weird craziness, please forgive me, because I would love to go back to the gym and I would love to go outside hiking in random places and adventuring, but I can't, so woohoo. Hello, welcome back to the channel. Today's episode is all about women and how we are very different to males and why you should eat and train differently to a male. So if you're currently on like a little get fit campaign with your partner or your boyfriend or a male friend, whoever, and they're getting all these cool results and you're doing the same thing that they are and you're not, it's because you're a female, believe it or not. So I read this book like a couple of weeks ago. I'm pretty sure her name's Tracy Sims, and she says in the book, women are not small men. Oh, has that never resonated with me as much as it has now, when I'm like, oh, why didn't anyone ever say this to me when I was training? I was doing all these like low calorie diets, training all the time and not losing weight. And my male friends were. That's awesome. Not. Okay, so let's point out the differences between males and females and why you should be doing things differently, or why if you're a coach, you should be considering these factors when you're training women rather than just giving them all the same program and diet and just less for women and less strength for women. Like, it's just, we'll just change her because she's a smaller version of the man. No, not how it works. First obvious difference that we have is the fact that we have a menstrual cycle. Isn't that great? Every month we bleed and we don't die, which is great and weird all at the same time. However, I would like to say that the menstrual cycle is basically two hormones. Progesterone and estrogen are the two important ones that we need to talk about right now. Those two hormones do different things to each other. I mean, compared to each other. One will do something, the other one does something opposite. So at different points in your cycle where you have higher levels of estrogen and then it will change and you'll have higher levels of progesterone, your body is responding very differently at those 2 points in time, which is great. I mean, it is great because if you work with it, it's awesome. But if you don't know what's happening, then you're screwed. So I'm going to do a different video in a week or so on the period, menstrual cycle, and the estrogen and progesterone levels and how they change and what they do. However, today is more about the generalized differences other than just the period. We're going to go through a few more. So your menstrual cycle is the most important part. At points in your menstrual cycle, you will use different fuels better. Fat will be used better, carbohydrates will be used better. Sometimes you have a higher metabolic rate, which means you can eat more food at that time. Other times you're going to be better at power and strength training, and other times you're going to be better at endurance training based on how your metabolic system is actually working. Sometimes your digestive system is really, really good and it's going to absorb all your nutrients, and other points of your menstrual cycle, it's going to be terrible, probably just before your period when you get a little bit constipated and you're not absorbing your food as good. Yeah, that's right. It's hormonal, believe it or not. And then once you get your period and you get diarrhea, that's also affected by your hormones, which is great. Core temperature also changes during the menstrual cycle, which is how you can track fertility if you haven't already discovered that. But you'll have different abilities to offload heat during different times of the month, which means your training program might feel really good and then feel really crap at some types of times of the month. So first obvious difference, we have a menstrual cycle, which will change the way you train and the way you eat if you want to lose weight, gain muscle, whatever your goal is. First obvious difference. Second obvious difference is our body shape. We have a wide pelvis. We have the ability to give birth to children, which is why our body is different and our pelvis is wider. If your pelvis is wider, I want you to imagine this, and your legs or your femurs are coming down like that, it means that the angle that it sits at is going to affect how your knees are aligning, which means you are at higher risk of knee injuries. If you have very, very wide hips, you'll find that your knees will probably suffer. And if you have a really bad stability around your pelvis, which means your glutes aren't very good, then you're also at high risk. You're also going to affect your ankles, which means knees and ankles are higher risk of injuries compared to males. So you need to do a lot of glute work. Make sure you have really stable, basically stable hips. I think the hips are like the driver of most stability problems in the lower body. So doing a lot of glute work in your program is really, really important. Watching what you're doing when you're doing plyometric work, because if your knees aren't stable or like the alignment isn't very good, you're at high risk of basically knee injuries. So be careful of that. Also, at different times of the month, your joint laxity, or how loose the joints are, can get worse because of your hormones. So at some times of the month, you're more at risk of injuries, even more so because your joints are looser and less stable. So you should be paying attention to the type of program that you're doing. If you're feeling like a little unstable at times, you actually are. So it's important to recognize that. Let's talk about muscle mass. We start off with less. Boys naturally just develop muscle because they have testosterone. We have testosterone a little bit, but not as much as males, and we have less ability to build muscle unless we train really hard and eat quite well and utilize our hormones properly. So we have less, and when we get to 30, we actually start losing more than males will lose. So when you hit 30, you start to decline in muscle mass by about 3% per decade, and when you reach 50, it's about 30% drop in muscle mass after that. So like decade wise, which is great. Not really. We also have a different fiber type dominance. Basically, women have a more dominant type 1 fiber, which is an endurance fiber, which means you're really good at prolonged training, or we have a better ability to utilize fat as our source of fuel rather than our carbohydrate stores. And men have a type 2 fiber dominance most of the time, which means that they're better at power and strength and speed. So as you get older and your muscle fibers decline, we also lose more of our type 2 fibers first, which means we slow down and we lose our ability to maintain speed. So as an older woman, you're going to get slower. You're going to have less ability to speed up and slow down, I guess, because you're going faster, which is great. Not really. So yeah, we need to make sure that our training and our nutrition around the time when we're getting older and then getting towards menopause is really appropriate for muscle building or muscle maintenance, and being able to pretty much offset any type of atrophy or muscle breakdown at that point in our life, because it's really, really important in order to keep your independence, look after your bone health, which is something else we're affected by. Our bone mineral density will drop off as we're older because it is highly also affected by estrogen. And when we lose our period and we lose our estrogen levels, our bone density also drops and lowers, which means we are more at risk of bone fractures later on in life than men. So that's also great. We sweat at a higher core temperature than males, so we start sweating later on in our workout. We also have problems offsetting heat or offloading heat. And also in the point of your menstrual cycle where your hormones are high, in the progesterone phase, which is phase 2, closer to when you just before you get your period, you'll have more troubles offloading heat. So you're gonna feel really, really, really hot all the time and have troubles regulating your heat. When you hit menstrual cycle, when you hit menopause, you have a increased issue with offloading heat. It's higher, it's harder to offload heat because your system is now different. You have less hormones. Basically, your ability to offload heat becomes crapper, if that's even a word, but it's worse. So yeah, if you're going through menopause right now and you're always feeling really hot when you're working out, that's why, because it's your hormones, or lack of hormones, I guess, in menopause. This is why a slow, cool recovery is really, really important for women. So when you do a workout, if you're not cooling down properly after your workout, your temperature is going to stay really, really high. You need to kind of bring it down slowly. It's also really important for blood pressure regulation. When you stop exercising, your blood pressure drops, basically. And if you drop too fast and your blood pools in the bottom of your legs, you get dizzy and you want to faint, which is great. It's post-exercise hypotension, I believe it's called. So if you don't cool down properly and lower your blood pressure slowly, keep your body moving, keep the blood flow flowing back to the heart, and dropping your core temperature, and as your muscles are slowing down, they're starting to push all the toxins out of the tissue and into the blood, and you are then able to break them down and metabolize them. You won't have as much toxic waste or toxic stress, I guess, inside the tissues, and you'll recover better. So if you're not cooling down, you should do it now. Definitely start cooling down. We need it more than males. However, it's important for everyone anyway. Another part of the recovery cycle is the fact that we have a 3-hour window of fat burning after our workout. How good is that? 3 hours of fat burning after our workout. Males have 21 hours of fat burning after their workout. Isn't that nice? Thanks, mate. Couldn't you give us a little bit of that? So, After your workout, your first 3 hours is fat burning, which is great, and then you go into a bit more of a fat storage mode, depending on your hormonal profile, obviously, and what you're doing, but that's generalization. And it doesn't even matter whether you're taking a thermogenic or a fat burner. If you are taking those supplements, your hormone profile, if it doesn't want to be in fat burning mode, it's not going to put you in a fat burning mode, no matter what you take. So you might be wasting your money, just putting it out there. But that 3 hour window is really important that you get the right nutrition in, which is going to move me to the next topic, diet and nutrition. Nutrition can change throughout the month because at some points in the month, you're going to be really good at storing, like using your carbohydrates. Other parts of the month, you're going to be not so good at that, using your carbohydrate, because your insulin sensitivity changes throughout your month based on your hormone response, which is great. So sometimes you can eat heaps of carbs and sometimes you can't. Sometimes you can eat more fat, sometimes you can't. Other times you actually have a higher metabolic rate, which means you can eat more food because you're burning through more calories, that's probably the best part of the whole menstrual cycle, is sometimes we're burning more calories and you can eat more food, which is great. So your nutrition needs to be around that. If you're eating the same thing day in, day out for the whole 4 weeks, probably not going to do you much good, because you're actually going against some of those patterns or metabolic processes, which is probably not helpful for your goals. Or it might be. Who knows? Depends what your goals are. Like I said earlier, your digestive system is also responsive to your hormone changes, and if your digestive system isn't working very well and you're not absorbing the nutrients you're actually eating, then you're not going to use them very well anyway. So it's really important that in the second half of your menstrual cycle, you're really looking after your digestive tract, your digestive health. You're making sure you're eating lots of fiber, and pretty much keeping an eye on your digestive system, because that's also going to affect weight loss, weight gain, muscle building. If you can't absorb the protein to use it to build muscle, you're not going to build any muscle. It's pretty simple. Serotonin. Serotonin is the feel-good hormone. There are lots of studies out there that show that women produce less serotonin. I don't know why, but they just do. And basically, you're more at risk for depression and anxiety than males, which is super nice. But if you cut carbohydrates, basically you're making that problem even more of an issue. Carbohydrates are going to help push this little amino acid across the blood-brain barrier into the brain to produce more serotonin. If you stop eating carbohydrates, the ability for that amino acid to cross across the blood-brain barrier and help produce more serotonin is now less, which means you're more at risk of feeling depressed and anxious, which no one wants to do that. So if you're cutting your carbohydrates and you're always depressed, maybe reconsider your diet and your nutrition. So if you're not doing the right thing right now, don't worry about it, because we're going to get there. And being aware of this thing is step 1 to reaching your goals and changing your habits to meet basically your physiology as a woman. Anyway, so those are the main differences. Women are very different to men, as you can see. We are not small men. Let me reiterate that. We are not small men. We have a very different anatomy, physiology, hormonal system, and it's all working differently to a male. So we need to work with it and hopefully see results from that. If you like this video, please share, thumbs up, like, subscribe, whatever the hell you do, and share it amongst everyone, because I'd really love to get a following where I can reach out to more people and help lots of more women understand health and fitness related to them. Otherwise, I hope you liked this video and found it helpful. Give me some comments if you liked it. Otherwise, I will see you in the next one. Bye!